Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. District Clerk, would you call the roll call, please?
Sure. Director Brett Eccles.
Here.
Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer. Here. Vice President Michael Schaefer.
Here.
President Robert Owen.
Here.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments?
No, Mr. President, nothing was received.
Is any public got their hand raised in the chat room?
Let me double check. No, Mr. President.
Okay, then we'll go on to the the Code Enforcement Officer's report for December 2020.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll turn this over to Ed Roberts, who will give us report.
Good morning, President Newton and members of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Board. Ed Roberts, I'll be presenting your December 2020 Code Enforcement Officer report. Ladies and gentlemen, for that month, I conducted a series of 7 proactive scavenging investigations throughout the community. On your informational packet, there should be maps and a brief narrative of each and every contact that was conducted in that month. They're spread out sporadically throughout the community. On the back of the report, the final page, there's an at-a-glance map for your benefit that shows where these contacts took place. And primary concentration appears to be on the west end of town, and some spread out in the Mesa Verde area and over in the Mesa Del Mar area. Does anybody from the board have any questions regarding the scavenging investigations?
No, it seems like there's more people doing scavenging, although it's in the same ballpark as usual, I guess, isn't it, Officer Roberts?
Yes, sir. Just if I could make a note, a couple of the contacts that I made, I was kind of asking. It was the month of December, in lieu of Christmas. I think folks were looking for either items that they could scavenge, retrieve out of the cans, or just a way to generate some funds for themselves.
Does any of the board members have any other questions?
Hey,
Mr.
Bob,
President, I do. Oh,
go ahead, Brett. Go ahead.
oh, sorry about that. But
No, go.
yeah, Officer Roberts, just in general, after a verbal warning, do you typically then see the same person maybe a month, 2 later that is continuing in the activity, or is it pretty much a one and done that you see them? And can you just walk me through that?
Certainly, Mr. Eccles. I've been working the sanitary district now part-time for about 6 years. And it is we have a transient community here in Costa Mesa that set up shop. There are folks that I do see fairly regularly on the streets. Once they see the marked code enforcement car, they kind of they know some sort of contact is coming up. They'll just kind of walk away. So to briefly answer your question, most of the folks are one-off contacts that I come across. However, there's that small minority population that are reoffenders, folks that just have no regard whatsoever for the enforcement process, because they know right now with the pandemic and all that, there's little to no ramifications, and a civil citation is kind of futile for an individual that doesn't have a bank account or a home, for example. It's probably a poor example, but civil citation really doesn't have a lot of teeth with an individual that's indigent by nature, sir.
Okay. And what about a person who may be a resident homeowner or resident of another city? I could think of several that I've seen around that are definitely not homeless. Do you encounter them very much?
Earlier on, when I first started here, sir, when the scavenging thing really took off, there were actually professional organizations that were coming out of not organizations, professional efforts. We're talking a pickup truck that would collect the material and then take it out of the city elsewhere. So they would bring their folks in and kind of just have them go out and scavenge out of our carts. I have little to no contact with actual proper homeowners, sir. Because
Okay.
in the course of my contact, that's one of the questions I ask, you know, where is it that you live? Try to get a little background on the individual so I can, you know, I always keep it to memory, letting know who they are, you know, so I can kind of keep tabs on what they're up to.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Bob, this
Uh,
is Mike.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, Ed, do you sense that with OCC recycling closed down, that more residents are putting recyclables into their cans, and has that had any effect on? I mean, the scavengers know that there's going to be a bigger volume of recyclables. So, do you have any sense that that's contributed to anything?
I do, sir. I'm going to make a point, and hopefully it's not inappropriate. With the pandemic, and this is just an opinion, I've seen a proliferation of beer bottles, alcoholic beverages in our trash carts and the recyclable material. So you've got glass bottles that do have a redemption value, you know, plus beer cans and soft drinks, etc. Where these folks are taking it, I've actually perused Santa Ana. Right on the border, seeing if that recycling center is still up and running over beyond the market. I forgot the name of the street. I believe it's Sagerstrom. These folks, there's got to be some sort of underground economy that's taking place, because the scavenging effort hasn't diminished at all with the closure of the OCC recycling center. So there's got to be some vehicle for them to be making some money off of this. It eludes me. I don't know where at.
I think part of it is going down to Huntington Beach. There's a couple of sites I know in Huntington Beach that are still open. So, well, I appreciate you keeping an eye on it. I really do.
Not a problem, sir. My pleasure.
And that was a very appropriate comment. There was nothing wrong with it.
Thank you, sir. Especially since we're on YouTube, right? President Newton brings me to the next portion of the report. This is going to cover the trash container enforcement for the month of December 2020. In lieu of the holiday season, I normally try to use my better judgment, you know, on, you know, I don't want to alienate the community, and it's just probably not the best time to be issuing any kind of enforcement. I did earlier in the month, I kind of hit it hard, trying to stay away from the Christmas and New Year's Eve area. There were about 81 notices of violation issued to offenders that kept their carts out longer than I felt comfortable with them remaining out on the street. There's a brief breakdown on that of the locations. Does anybody have any questions regarding that, sir?
It looks like the number is lower than normal.
Normally, sir. December was kind of a unique month. I was tasked with some other material too, some district projects. So the primary focus for me for trash container enforcement was primarily the first couple weeks of December. Once we got closer to the Christmas era, and the Christmas season and New Year's, kind of take a step back from that and focus efforts elsewhere.
Sounds good.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the trash container enforcement?
Good report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That concludes it for me, sir. If there's anything else.
Now I've lost a split screen, the lining. Okay, there. Now we're back. Okay, the next item is a real important item for the sanitary district. It's the sewer system management plan self-audit that was conducted by EEC, and I believe we had a chance to review the draft earlier, and this is headed towards being the final report. Scott, are you going to lead the discussion, or?
I'm going to turn this over to Nabila Guzman. She's going to do the introduction, and then Joe Jenkins from EEC will be giving a presentation.
Good morning, President Newton, members of the board. Per the statewide requirements, the district developed and implemented a comprehensive sewer system management plan or Ssmp, with the primary objective of reducing and preventing sanitary sewer overflows. The Ssmp must be audited every 2 years to evaluate the effectiveness of the document. EEC has completed the 2020 audit and is ready to present their findings to the board. So there is a presentation, and Joe Jenkins.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
You guys can hear me okay?
Morning, Joe.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good to see everyone again, on even if it is on Zoom. Okay, well, thank you for the great introduction there, Nabila. So I think we can jump right into the presentation here and go to the next slide. So I know you guys know EEC pretty well by now, but I thought I would introduce everyone who was involved in the audit from the EEC side. I was the primary auditor for the project, but we also had Jim Kolk, who's a senior project engineer at EEC, helping review documents and the report as well. And then where we needed some expert regulatory advice, we had Keith Silva. Keith is retired from the EPA. He spent 30 years at the EPA. He's very familiar with all the WDR requirements and the state requirements. We've done multiple previous Ssmp audits in the past, including for the district, conducting 3 previous ones for the district, including the previous 2018 Ssmp audit. Been doing Ssmp audits since I think it was like 2009 or 2010 was our first ones, and we do probably 2 or 3 every year for the city. So we do a lot of Ssmp audits. All right, go to the next one. So as Nabila mentioned, the Ssmp is required to be audited at least once every 2 years, with the previous one conducted for the district in November of 2018. It's supposed to be a comprehensive review of the Ssmp document, both comparing the Ssmp to the state requirements to make sure all the components are there and it's meeting all those requirements from the state, but also making sure that the Ssmp reflects the actual district practices in their day-to-day programs. So it's supposed to be what they call a living document, where it's updated regularly to accurately reflect what the district does every day. It's supposed to be more than just a checklist. I've seen a lot of audit reports where they're just are they doing this, yes or no, all the way through, but the state wants to see more descriptions about how the district is complying or not complying. So that's why you have more of a comprehensive report from us. But it should be an opportunity for program improvement. We're not just looking to point out everything that the district is doing wrong here. We want to highlight the positives and make it an opportunity to brag about all the proactive and good work the district does on a day-to-day basis to prevent SSOs. Okay. So this is the Ssmp audit process that we followed. We did an initial kickoff meeting with staff, obviously all remotely through Zoom. We reviewed the Ssmp and the current available documents that the district has. The documentation review part of it is very important, because as far as the state is concerned, if it's not documented, it doesn't exist. So mainly when they do an audit, the first thing they'll do is do a document request, and you'll have to send in all your program documents and everything. And if things aren't well documented there, then they can dock you for it. We then conducted a series of staff interviews and then prepared the report. And so within the report, we identified what we call non-conformances. There's 2 types of non-conformances: major non-conformances and minor non-conformances. A major one is something that you could receive severe enforcement from the state, like a fine or some sort of other penalty. And then a minor non-conformance is just something identified that needs to be corrected. We then identified where the corrective actions for those non-conformances and included our recommended program enhancements. So here's a brief list of all the documents, the main documents, I guess, that we reviewed. In Appendix A of the actual report, you have a full list of everything we went through, but these are the key components that we want to make sure we really go through when we do these audits. Obviously, historic SSO data and cleaning history and rehab and rehabilitation projects are important factors of the Ssmp. So these are the key components that we really want to make sure we focus on. Okay. Those that aren't that familiar with the Ssnp, these are the main Ssnp components. There's 11 main sections of the Ssnp that we go through, we look at. I won't go over each of those sections today. I do want to take the opportunity to say that the district has a very comprehensive Ssnp compared to other cities and sewer agencies that we review. What a lot of cities do is they do kind of the bare minimum just to kind of check off the requirements of the WDR so they don't get in trouble. But the state really doesn't want to see that. They want this to be a comprehensive document that really lays out your programs, and the district does a good job of that in their Ssnp. Okay. So here's all the staff that we conducted interviews with. Again, all remote interviews, and then we did them at separate times, so we didn't do everyone at once. Like Scott and Val was a separate one, and then we interviewed the interim district engineer Michael Benesh, and then did the wastewater maintenance guys separate, and then Steve was a separate interview also. Kind of gives everyone an opportunity to speak freely. We don't want anyone to hold back. We don't want us to just be kind of grilling them during the interviews. We want to be more conversational so people are open to share information. Okay. So we can get into what our findings were. So historically, the district has had a very good SSO trend, typically low SSO numbers. However, over the last 2 years, we have seen an increase in trend in public SSO numbers. You're still at 3.6 SSOs, and this is for similar sized sewer systems. So we're comparing it against the state average here. So between I think it was 150 to or maybe 100 to 250 miles. I can't remember exactly what the range was, but it's similar sized sewer systems is what we look at to make sure that we don't want to compare you against a very large agency that has a lot of SSOs. Is the point here. Even though there is an increasing trend, we did look forward at the second half of 2020, and obviously the first half of 21 is still new, but we are seeing that trend going back down. There's only been one public SSO since that time. I believe the increase in public SSOs is attributed to kind of unique types of SSOs, like air release valve failures at force mains, the lift station issues, things you don't typically see. And as I'll talk about later, we did see an increase in residential fog related spills as well within the district. And so the district.
Joe, I wanted to ask you, do you want to take questions as you go along, or do you want to wait till the end?
I can take them as we go along. That's fine. Sure.
On this chart, you mentioned there were 3 fog related SSOs out of the 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
And you just mentioned a list of the other ones, but you didn't show on the chart how many were from air release valves or other.
Right.
And I think that would be interesting to see. But
okay, I think we talked about it in the actual audit report, but if I can also include in the report, if you'd like, a table of all the different causes of spills for those 8 spills that happened in 2019, 2020.
Yeah, if you would, please.
Okay, sure. If I remember correctly, I think 3 were fog, 2 were lift station related, and then the other 3 were a combination of roots and rags.
When you say lift stations, you mean air relief valves?
Well, I think it just, as the description, it just said like a control malfunction was the description. So one was an air relief valve, and one was some sort of control malfunction.
Okay, thank you.
And so during interviews, the district staff did indicate that the necessary changes have been implemented to help prevent these SSOs from occurring in the future. So adding additional contractor clean crews when staff clean crews aren't available to go out and clean and make sure the lines are being cleaned adequately. And then they're going through and have implemented an annual inspection of the air relief valves to make sure that they're all working properly. And in some cases, they're even looking to where air relief valves could be removed on force mains.
Joe, in that regard, there you make a list of you just went through a list of improvements, but I think one improvement that isn't in that list was that I think we're going to pipe the leaking air release valves back to the sewers.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and all of those types of fixes are good to prevent future SSOs. It's good to identify where there's a potential for a spill, and even large spills at force mains, especially in high risk areas, over freeways in this case, and close to waters of the state is good to be proactive in addressing.
Well, Joe, one last, I'll stop.
No
I'll
problem,
slow
please.
down. We used a contractor to do a significant amount of cleaning.
Yes.
And when we switched over to have the district clean, one of the concerns was the district, the contractors at that time were cleaning very quickly,
Yeah.
much more quickly than the than the district thought was appropriate. And after we stopped using the district contractors, our SSOs went down pretty significantly.
Right.
How can we get a sense for, well, do you have data that would show when the SSOs occurred, and when we were using not using district crews and equipment, because they weren't available?
Right. Yeah, we could see if there's a correlation between that. We definitely have the timeline month to month of when the SSOs occurred. So on specific days and timeframes when they occurred, and then we can compare that to when the district started using more contract cleaning or went away from contract cleaning.
If you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. There's other options to address, things like that. You could look at, potentially either adding additional staff or adjusting cleaning frequencies within the sewer system to focus more on areas where you want to clean more proficiently. So through the different seminars I've been to and discussions with the state, though, their focus and where they look at a bunch of program indicators as to how a program is doing and implementing their Ssnp and whether or not they're being successful. One of the things they're kind of getting away from is looking at total SSO numbers, because they want people to report their spills. They don't want people to shy away from it, especially reporting the small volume spills. And what they're looking more at is kind of this graph right here, which is SSO recovery percentages and percentage of volumes that reach waters of the state. So how much of a spill is actually hitting state contaminating waterways and that sort of thing. So historically, the district has had a pretty good SSO recovery percentage. We just had a tough year in 2019 where a couple of spills occurred really close to inlets to the channels, and some volumes were lost. But as you can see, in 2020, they got right back on track with the SSO recovery percentage. And based on the interviews and the procedures, all the staff is well trained on SSO response, and the district has the necessary equipment to respond to SSOs. Okay. So the preventative maintenance program, currently the entire system is cleaned on an 18-month cleaning frequency. The district also has additional resources for the preventative maintenance program. So wastewater maintenance workers, a SCADA technician for the lift stations, lift station maintenance, combination cleaning trucks, CCTV trailer to do as needed CCTV, emergency CCTV to identify any issues, utility truck with an outrigger crane for removing the pumps within the lift stations, and then does utilize, as we mentioned, the contract cleaning companies as needed when the wastewater maintenance workers are pulled off to do, when they're off doing CCTV, obviously that means one of the cleaning trucks is then down for that time. So that, the district is using more contract cleaning companies to supplement for when they're not cleaning.
One more point. When I worked for Orange County Sand District, we used a lot of contract cleaning companies, and the staff were very dismayed that they had no way of checking on the contract cleaning companies, and
Right.
and they so what we did was we implemented a system where the contract cleaning company had to submit randomly or at the district's discretion places where they or the district could CCTV their work. And that seemed to satisfy staff that there was a way to measure whether they were cleaning adequately or not.
Right.
And I think I'll suggest that we do the same kind of thing. I think the percentage was 10% of the things they had to CCTV behind the contract cleaning company. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
certainly double checking the cleaning is a good way to make sure they're doing a good job. I think the only issue is that if you're going to use a CCTV trailer, then again, you're using the wastewater maintenance workers, which means then you got to use more cleaning companies. So maybe you have to contract the CCTV to do some spot checking or something like that.
Well, I would
That is
say
a
that
good
a little
idea.
differently, because during that time, our staff is not doing the cleaning.
Right.
Then they would potentially be available to CCTV behind the contractor.
Right.
Anyway,
I agree. Okay, great. Yeah, good ideas. Okay, we can keep going. So again, the preventative maintenance, ongoing lift station maintenance is weekly, monthly, and then as I mentioned, annual inspections of all the lift stations. And the annual inspections are now looking at the air relief valves and making sure those are all working properly. District has also implemented a root foaming program where right now 12 sewer segments are foamed every 2 to 3 years to keep roots under control in those areas, and where heavy roots are identified, they're added to the program as applicable. Staff has conducted a good amount of education and training, including making sure that the wastewater maintenance workers and staff have their CWA certifications. And so this table just shows what CWA certification grade each of the staff members have. And that's kind of one of the primary certifications in California for sewer system cleaning. And then the district also has adequate equipment and replacement parts inventory especially for all the lift stations and backup parts, and then equipment for the cleaning trucks. And the inventory is well documented. So SSO response, so the SSO emergency response plan is in place and updated, and then contingency plans for each of the individual lift stations are mostly developed. There's still 4 that are in the process of being developed, but those should be completed this year. As I mentioned before, staff are adequately trained on SSO response, and they do annual refreshers on the SSO emergency response plan. And during interviews, they all were very knowledgeable of the plan and what they need to do to respond. And then necessary resources are available for the staff and to respond to SSO. So backup pumps, generators, utility trucks, and then of course lots of sandbags. So sewer system master plan development is pretty much complete. I'm guessing it's I'm sorry, this says projected completion December 2021. It should be 2020, and then adopted 2020, early 2021. As to develop the sewer master plan, the district utilizes GIS to conduct hydraulic modeling to identify any potential hydraulic deficiencies within the sewer system. And as a result of that modeling, no real hydraulic deficiencies were identified. There has been some areas at some of the different lift stations where they have seen like inflow and infiltration. So like I think it was Maxine lift station where there was some inflow, and then the district conducted smoke testing and CCTV to try to identify where the inflow is coming from, and identified some areas of in and around the fairground area where there was some infiltration that they hope will help with some of the hydraulic issues there. But within the main sewer system, no hydraulic deficiencies were identified.
Do you know if we've ever had an SSO related to infiltration or inflow? I don't believe I've ever seen
Not
one.
that I'm aware of, no.
I think maybe you should include that in the report.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. That's something good to point out for sure. So lift station and force main rehabilitation projects is a big focus of the master plan. There's going to be a lot of lift station and force main, I guess, rehabilitation happening over the next 2 years. And the district is also prioritizing structural defects for repair. So all of the grade 5s were repaired previously, as I'll talk about in a minute. And so the district is now focusing on approximately 30 sections that had a grade 4.5 or higher for the structural grade deficiency. 5 is the work plan from there. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So previously, the district did address all the grade 5 structural defects and identify capacity issues. So 311 line segments were either repaired or lined, and then 72 protruding laterals were repaired. So that's very good. There's currently no known grade 5 structural defects. District has done a good job of identifying and reducing enhanced maintenance locations or hotspots. In 2010, there were 95 hotspots within the district, and as of 2020, there are currently 18 hotspots within the district. And this doesn't include siphons and those sorts of things. These are more structural related issues. And then the district has a CIP to address ongoing sewer system management needs, and appears to have available funding for these planned projects in place. And so on the next slide, we have a breakdown here of the allocated funding and projects that are planned for the 2020-2021 CIP. So again, as
Joe,
I mentioned, yeah.
Somehow the project like 309 has to be related to one of those values. Maybe the chart could have the project number or the 309. I don't know which one it is, but
okay. Yeah, I'm colorblind also, so I'd say the blue ones are the blue ones to me. But it's the one that's 64,500.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
all of them somehow have to be related to the.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can add the label for the project number to the pie chart.
Thank you.
Good point.
Hey, Joe, can you have those things that Bob requested ready for our board meeting later in the month?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, sounds good.
Sorry, I'm writing that down. So we can talk now about the fog control program. So EEC does manage and pretty much run the fog control program for the district. And another key trend to look at is how successful a fog control program is how many fog-related public SSOs are you having? So historically, the district has seen very few fog-related SSOs. From 2014 to 2015 through 17-18, there was 0. But over the last 2 years, we have seen a slight increase here in those SSOs. And again, as I mentioned before, all of these SSOs here are residential related spills. I think one was a fog related spill and a siphon. So, that's probably the only one that's not residential. And so we have a pretty good handle, I think, on the food service establishments, and we're out there and we're inspecting them and trying to stay in front of them. So there just maybe needs to be a little bit more put into the residential education program to help, especially where we can identify areas where we're seeing heavy fog accumulation in these areas. So targeted residential educational program approach. So part of the fog program, identify and inspect food service establishments and use that as an opportunity to provide them with their necessary educational materials. You can see on the table here for the previous 2 years, how many inspections we conducted of each type. You see it's a slight decrease, obviously, in what we call kitchen best management practices over the previous year, just because we're not doing as many in restaurant inspections with COVID-19 and everything. It's more of a focus on grease interceptors and grease interceptor maintenance. For any new FSE or FSE undergoing a remodel, we require them to install grease removal devices or grease interceptors. And obviously, if we identify an FSE that doesn't have an interceptor that's causing problems, then we'll evaluate whether or not they should install one. Continue to look for and identify any fog-related hotspot locations and try to mitigate that. And then ensure proper fog disposal when restaurants are pumping their grease interceptors, that the grease-based haulers have a place to take it to. And usually under the fog disposal, was the Orange Coast College, the recycling container. So, an additional resource for residents to take their grease waste, probably should be looked into so they can take large quantities. Okay, so then we can get into the identified non-conformances. So we didn't identify any major non-conformances, which is good, but we did identify 5 minor non-conformances. So a common one of any Ssnp audit is just the organizational chart reflecting current staffing. There's a lot of turnover within cities and sewer agencies. And even though the org chart was updated recently in 2019, we have had some recent turnover within the district that needs, so the org chart just needs to be updated. In fiscal year 2018-2019, district didn't meet the 18-month cleaning frequency. So again, goes back to what we talked about of cleaning crews and wastewater maintenance getting pulled off on other projects or CCTV projects, and the district needing to implement more contract cleaning companies to help supplement the cleaning to stay on track. And then, as I mentioned before, the district has not completed the overflow emergency response plans for 4 lift stations. It's in the process of being completed and should be completed soon based on interviews. So the Ssmp does not accurately reflect the current status of the system evaluation capacity assurance of the district. This is mainly in this section. Currently the Ssmp is talking about the old master plan and that the new master plan would be implemented in 2017. So that narrative needs to be updated. And there's a table that lists all of the rehabilitation projects that the district is working on. And so a lot of those projects are outdated and needs to be updated with the new upcoming projects. And then last one, the district has not completed all of the non-conformances identified in the 2018 audit. So in 2018, we also identified the need to create the SSO contingency plans for the 4 lift stations. And normally not addressing an identified non-conformance from a previous audit could be a major non-conformance, but it's not like this finding was completely ignored by the district. 2 plans were created as a result of that finding, and the other ones are in the process of being completed. They just weren't completed at the time of this audit. Okay. So recommended program enhancements. These are optional to the district. They're not something that's required to do, but just something we recommend. So the first one is adding more measurable goals to quantify the effectiveness of the Ssmp. So we just have a few recommendations in terms of like having a total SSO numbers goal of staying below each time, or specific staff training hours. In discussions with Scott and other staff, we talked about using the transparency page and the performance metrics in the transparency page of the district to be incorporated into the Ssmp as a good measurable goal. And then to update the Ssmp to reflect upcoming rehabilitation projects. So this kind of goes back to the non-conformance identified, but just anywhere in the Ssmp where it's talking about upcoming projects or just making sure everything is up to date. Okay. It's a tough time to identify additional training opportunities for district staff. So, you know, a lot of conferences and whatnot were either canceled or turned remotely. But again, you can just training opportunities can come in any form, either just doing getting more guys trained on the CCTV trailer, or doing as much in-house training as you can. And then, of course, any training that is conducted, it's important that that training is documented and tracked. Create and implement key standard operating procedures. Those are just for the cleaning, and probably a good one to have for guys is use of CMMS, maintenance management database. This is mainly so that if you have new staff come in or new hires, you can give them the standard operating procedures, and you know they can review those and make sure that they know what's going on. Review and update sewer standards to make sure any new technologies are included. You don't want to be limited on what you can do for rehab and rehabilitation just because it's not part of your standards. Conduct emergency bypass training for high-risk lift stations. So going out and talking about how to set up the pumps and everything to bypass the lift station, you know, to which manhole are you going to be bypassing, and do the setup, go through all the traffic control. That's just good exercise for the guys. Okay. Along with the SSO training, it's good to conduct periodic what we call simulation training. OCSD used to offer simulation training at their site. They had a really good site for it, but of course they're not really doing that now. So a lot of what you can do is just kind of like at the yard or somewhere, just have them like kind of dumping over buckets of water or barrels of water and then trying to berm it up with sandbags. You know, usually guys think, you know, a couple of sandbags is enough to stop a spill, but what they'll quickly realize is it takes a lot of sandbags usually to berm off an area. So it's good just to go through simulation training and then practice filling out the forms and collecting all the information that's needed. So kind of a picky recommended enhancement is standardizing the term of either hotspots or enhanced maintenance locations throughout the Ssmp. I think it says enhanced maintenance locations, also known as hotspots, and then is referred to as hotspots throughout the Ssmp. But if you're going to call them, you know, enhanced maintenance locations, it's good to stick with that term. Then you can call them like EMLs or something like that. Develop another standard operating procedures, just interactions with the city of Costa Mesa. But this just kind of goes through permitting and reviewing things with the city in terms of new FSCs. So just how, in terms of like, when does the customer submit their plans to the city, and then they're picked up with the city, and then when does it have to go back and be completed and submitted. Again, continue the residential education at fog-related hotspots and really identify opportunities for focus and enhance residential fog-related education.
Hey, Joe, I'd like to ask a question about training. Are you familiar with the Orange County Sand District when they did the pilot study to put different amounts of water in a manhole, you know, to see how high the
So looking at the pick holes and the manholes, because Yeah, one of the ways you quantify the volume of an SSO spill, identify the spill rate, is how
Yeah.
high the water is spurting out of different pick holes and vent holes in a manhole. And then you have, different types of manholes. Some manholes don't have vents, but they'll have an open pick hole, or they'll have multiple vents. And so you measure basically how high the water is spurting out of the manhole to determine the SSO spill rate.
Do you know if are our staff familiar with that?
I know they're familiar with that because that is a method identified in the SSO ERP to quantify an SSO spill. I don't know that staff have seen that in person or have experienced that exercise.
Well, those reports are available and, in picture form.
Yeah, they do have the picture grid in the SSO ERP showing the different heights of the spurt compared to the different volume rates.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. It's a pretty big spill, I guess, when you get there and you see it squirting out of the manhole that strongly, you're on a big one.
Hey, Bob, I have a question for Joe.
Okay, go.
Joe, do you know the names of the companies that are collecting the fog from the restaurants? Do you have a list of those companies?
Yeah, we do. We have a grease waste hauler list that's it's available right now on the district website, but I also have the list, so we could include that as an appendix to the Ssnp.
Yeah, I just like that for my information. And where do they take the fog things that they pick up? Fog material.
So there's a couple of different places. Some companies are big enough that they have their own recycling and rendering facility. So like Darling International and Baker Commodities have their own facilities. Other places that don't have their own facilities mostly take it to Orange County Sanitation District, has a receiving area for fog waste.
Hey Scott, could we get any organics increases by using that fog information?
Organic
Scott,
increases?
I mean, can we use those totals at all?
I don't know. It's something I have to look into. I don't think so. Off the top of my mind, I don't think so, because grease is not really considered a waste diversion on the solid waste side. Also, we want to divert it away from the wastewater side, but I don't think Cal Recycle recognizes grease as a diversion.
No, I was just thinking as an organics.
Yeah.
On the trash side.
Yeah, we can look into it.
Just you know me, I'm always thinking about.
Yes, you are. Definitely true.
Okay.
Joe, I have a question.
Sure.
Referring to the table of contents, on the very right side, is that not the page numbers?
It should be, yes.
Then why isn't it that we have the page numbers on each page?
Because of the audit report?
Yes, because like when I'm reading it, it took me so long because I couldn't refer to the pages because you didn't have any page numbers. In other words, if I was looking for the public part or the flow, I had to go through the whole thing again to be able to get what I would get easy if I could look at the numbers on the pages at the bottom.
I see. I'm looking at the report. It should have at the very bottom center of the page, but I guess maybe in the appendices it doesn't have the page numbers.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
And it really, to me, is important because it took twice as long, if not more. So anyway, just a suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Bob, I have one more question for Joe.
Yes.
Go.
Okay. Part of your presentation, you said consider adding additional staff. Are you talking about the field staff?
Right.
Is that a recommendation you're making or just a suggestion?
Well, it's so within the audit report as part of our recommended corrective action under that section, basically what we're saying is evaluate why, try to identify why the district didn't meet their 18-month cleaning frequency goal. And so you could do a number of things. One of the things is adding additional staff. That was something that in interviews with Scott and other district members saying they could use additional staff and additional trucks. What sewers cleaning agency couldn't use that. But you could also do other things like reevaluating the cleaning frequency. Does every line segment need to be cleaned every 18 months? That sort of thing. Using additional contract cleaning companies is also an option. So it's more just our main recommendation is just to evaluate that 18-month cleaning frequency and then determine, what's the best way to approach it to meet it consistently.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Joe, I have a couple more comments. On page 2 of the Ssmp, you referred to the district representatives, and I think you should probably say, or could say, the district board.
Okay.
I don't know if I said this earlier, but in the executive summary, I think it's important to mention that when I was at Orange County Sand District, I was in charge of partially in charge of staff that worked on the first WDR that was adopted by the Santa Ana Regional Water Quality Control Board. Rob Hamers, our district engineer at the time, wrote the Ssmp that was adopted by the Santa Ana Regional Water Quality Control Board in 2002, and subsequently adopted by the state in 05 or 06.
Right.
I think it's important. So the district has a long history of familiarity with the Ssmp, because one of our staff, wrote the thing, wrote the draft of it, and then I guess I think that's it. I'm sorry for taking up so much time.
No, all right. Okay, that's great. Okay, great. Thank you guys very much for your questions and comments.
Oh, the last thing I'd like to ask staff to do is lots of times these big reports, this is a 70-some page report. It needs an implementation plan. So that this document just doesn't go up on the shelf and gather dust until the next audit in 2 more years, or the next certification, I guess, in 5 years. There's a lot of valuable suggestions in this report, but I think the board needs to see, the next iteration of it would be an implementation plan. This is a massive document, but it's such an important document. And anytime we do this kind of report, we need to think in terms of an implementation plan. Scott, maybe we'll be talking to you about that.
Sure, I'm writing it down right now, Bob.
As a goal.
Sure.
And in the
and then we would be aware that something like the non-conformance suggestion that came from the 2018 plan, we would have a way to track. I think we're on track to do that, but we would be aware of it, better aware of it.
And in the summary of findings in Appendix F up to President, we did put in there what we think the targeted dates for completion of the non-conformances should be. So a lot of these will be corrected through the update of the Ssmp.
Well, I think that's important, and that may write the implementation plan there.
Yes,
we just need to have it as a separate document that the board gets to review periodically.
Right.
Because we are not necessarily going to go back and read this every 3 months unless we want to have something to put us to sleep. but a shorter abstracted implementation plan would be something that we could easily review. Does the board have any more questions for the sewer system management plan self-audit?
Bob, this is Mike. I have just a point of clarification from either you or Joe. You guys were talking about measuring SSOs based on the water coming out of a manhole cover or coming out of a manhole cover, right?
Yes.
We've undertaken a big project to plug all the manhole covers. So that I'm missing some relevance here. If we're plugging all these things, are you saying that if there's an SSO, it pushes the plug out, or
Well, not necessarily. There's at least staff have generally left one vent hole open, and or the thing used to lift the cover. The water's going to come out somewhere, probably through a manhole. It's just a good reference. It was interesting when we did the project at Orange County Sand District. Every spill is an estimate, and certain parties will go after us for not estimating it correctly, and this is the best guide that I know of that the industry has to estimate it. And there are many manholes that aren't plugged. We
Right.
mainly
If I can clarify that for President Uten and Director Sher, we're not plugging and sealing all the manhole covers, not all 4,500 manhole covers, because that when you do that, then you create gas issues. You don't want your sewer system build up with gas if there's no air into the system. So we're just plugging and sealing manhole covers that we know where streets are prone for flooding.
Okay,
that's what we're plugging and sealing.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the comments I remember a couple of years ago when we were talking about the plugging, and I had specifically asked that question about gas buildup and the potential for plugging too many manhole covers and having covers blow off under a car or in front.
Sure.
So I'm glad to hear you say that, Scott. That clarifies it a lot, and I appreciate that.
Good.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Real good report.
Yeah, no, it's an extremely valuable and interesting plan.
This report really piqued your interest, didn't it, Bob?
Yes.
Well, thank you.
All
everyone.
right. Can we go on to the next item, number 3, then, which is the proposed amendments and considering approving the recertification of the sewer system management plan. This is an iteration of it's a red line iteration of a lot of information that's been added or changed in the Ssmp. And Scott, do you want to go on from there?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as just to piggyback on what Mr. President Uten just mentioned, a lot of changes, deletions, additions to the proposed amended Ssmp. And when you have that many changes, then we have to recertify the plan. And so today is your opportunity to review and comment on those proposed changes. If you don't have any other suggestions or comments, we will bring back the final document to you on January 25th for your approval consideration and recertifying the plan. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. President,
All right.
I just a brief clarification, just on item number 2, it said bring back, recommendation was to bring back to board and recertify on January 28th, but then item number 3, of course, was the 25th. Is there, did I miss something?
Yeah, good catch, Director. Thank you. It's January 25th.
Okay, Got it.
Uh,
I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to make sure there wasn't another thing we were supposed to do on the 20th.
Thank you. That's an error on our part, my
Okay.
part. So January 25th.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one comment, we include the performance measures or some of the performance measures that are related to SSOs. And one of them is the rain ingress goal chart. I don't understand that. And, I'd like to just talk to staff offline, for clarification, on that performance measure. And then, a sort of a concern that I've sort of expressed is the average footage of daily pipe cleaned. We make that a performance measure. And I think that, I have concerns that staff are pushing up towards the daily pipe clean numbers that the contractors use in the industry. And, the concerning part is whether having that goal causes staff, to push through the system too quickly, or what, I guess that's my question.
Well, the average daily, okay, so the goal is to clean the system within 18 months. And so in order to clean the entire 18 months, we're able to calculate, or what's the average footage they need to clean per day. That's what that measurement is. If they hit that measurement, then we're confident we're going to hit the 18-month cleaning cycle.
Well, again, my concern is if that number is too high and staff are, running and gunning, blowing through the system just to meet that goal, then we need to rethink. Well, we need to talk about that sometime at a future date.
Also understand the performance measurements, they're not used to reprimand employees for not hitting their goals. So there is no consequence as far as on the performance evaluation, they don't hit it. The whole purpose of the performance evaluation or the performance measurement program is that if they're not hitting their goal, then we sit together and we say, why aren't we hitting the goal? What can we do differently to hit that goal? And like Joe mentioned in his previous presentation, do we need to add more staff? Do we need to change our cleaning frequencies on certain pipe sizes? That's the whole purpose of the measurements program, is to, okay, if you're not hitting it, that's okay. What are we doing now that we do differently to make sure we hit that in the future?
Okay, well, that's a discussion that I'd like to see in the near future.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up about the additional staff. I was always thinking that we should probably have an additional staff in the field.
Well, we are conducting that analysis as we speak. So, and I plan on bringing that to the board in a couple of months at a study session to have that discussion.
Okay, good. So, Scott, we also have a new term, enhanced maintenance areas instead of grade 4, grade 5s.
Enhanced maintenance areas in replace of hotspots.
Yeah, I know. I like that.
Yes.
Do any of the directors have any further questions on either item 2 or 3? Thank you, staff. This is an enormous endeavor, and I think you've done an outstanding job. I appreciate the enormous amount of work that you do and or the contractors have done.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Brad.
Scott, just quick, can you just quickly run through on the red line version of the changes? Most of them, of course, were as a result of the audit review and recommended actions. Can you just walk me through the hotspot committee was disbanded and kind of reorged a little bit, or meeting and all that? Can you just give me the high level change on that?
Sure. We staff did a few months ago, we did a presentation to the board about the status of our hotspots. So as let me go back any farther, as Joe mentioned in his previous presentation, back in 2010, we had about 95 identified hotspots where required high frequency cleaning, usually twice, sometimes 4 times a year. due to roots, grease, other defects in the system. So we created a committee that consisted of myself, Rob Hamers at the time, also Steve Cano, our wastewater maintenance superintendent, our cleaning crews, and then Joe Jenkins was in those meetings as well to help us with our GIS mappings. And so we would meet every 3 months to identify, well, what can we do to remove these hotspots? What kind of improvements can we do? And one instance, we learned that a lot of the root intrusions were caused by cracks in the joints, like between the laterals and the main line. And we figured, well, if we put what's called a top hat liner or short liner on those cracks, then that would eliminate the roots, which has successfully done that. We've also done some improvements to some certain line segments to ensure no more roots or fog can accumulate. And so we slowly decreased the number of hotspots. Now we're not going to come to a total 0 hotspots because we identified probably 14 would be probably the magic number to have permanent hotspots, because those hotspots have structural defects, and it's just more cost effective to clean them twice a year than repairing them. It would cost us more to repair them than just going out there twice a year to clean them. So we'll always have, we believe, which is 14 up to 14 hotspots. So because we identified those 14 hotspots, the remaining 4 we know we have to do some minor improvements. There really was not necessary to have that committee. That's why we disbanded the committee. It would the committee would only come together if needed. So they really achieved their objective, and that's why we disbanded the committee.
Gotcha. One less level of bureaucracy. All right.
Yes. one less meeting.
There you go. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
I also sat in on that committee for a number of years, and there is another waste discharge committee meeting, and I forget the frequency, but it is done by many of the agencies in Orange County, or maybe the Orange County Sand District jurisdiction, the 25 member agencies. So Rob Hamers chaired that committee for a number of years. And so that allowed us to talk to El Toro and San Clemente, or not San Clemente, but all the 25 member agencies. And that still is going on. So staff can and perhaps should attend, and I'm considering attending, that regional committee, WDR committee.
Yes, we do that. Yes, that still exists.
Super. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board or the public on those 2 major items? If not, we'll move to oral communications and director's comments.
This is Mike. It's Mike.
Oh, Mike.
In looking at the city's Facebook posting the other day about an upcoming meeting, I think we all need to know that this afternoon or this evening, the city is conducting a workshop, I believe, or a meeting on organics recycling and city requirements. So I'd reached out to Scott to find out what our involvement is. And Scott informed me that our staff and city staff actually met yesterday, I believe, Scott, to offer our assistance. And then I know Nabila is going to attend the city meeting this afternoon. But I think it behooves us as a district to make sure that we reach out and stay connected with the city so that they meet their requirements, which obviously directly affect our requirements. But more than anything, I think we need to make sure the city understands that we've got a lot of experience in this area, and we can help them so that they attain their goal, with the state deadlines and everything. Yeah, Scott, I don't know if you have anything else to say about that.
No, thank you, Director Schaefer. That's correct. So we did meet with city staff yesterday. to talk about the SB 1383, which is a new law that goes into effect in a couple of years. Nabila has been working with our consultant, Mike Baye, on this law and what it applies to us. And so we'll be coming back to the board here real shortly on some recommendations. But we also agreed to meet with city staff and also Mesa Water staff on a quarterly basis, just on a staffing level. Just staff only. So we can keep the open communication lines on issues and collaborating on certain projects. So that was a good meeting. And yes, Nabila is it's a study session, I believe, tonight. So Nabila will be attending that, and then she'll report out what occurred at that meeting.
Great, thank you.
Any other directors' comments?
I
Yes,
wanted-
yeah, go ahead, Arlene.
I just wanted to be sure that you understood that meeting that was on the 28th and switched to the 25th. Actually, the 28th is when ISDOC has their general meeting. So it's just important that you know that it is an ISDOC meeting. It's like the regular luncheon, except it's going to be all, Zoom. And I've got the sheriff coming, Don Barnes, and he'll do an excellent job too. So just to let you know.
Let me interrupt. Mike, would you take over the meeting? I have a doctor's appointment at 11, so.
If you, before you go, President Un, can I make a quick announcement?
Sure.
So I'm sorry, I wanted to make this public, let the board know and the public know that we have selected a person for it to be our next district engineer. And his name is Mark Esker.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mark worked for me.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Mark Esker has 35 years of experience in the water wastewater profession, 20 years experience working at Orange County Sanitation District as an engineer manager for several divisions, including collections, small projects, and engineering processing. Recently, he was the principal engineer at Kleinfelder Engineering, where he was part of a team on wastewater and water designs and project management. So, he comes with a wealth of knowledge and experience. He's a registered professional civil engineer. He has his grade 4 certifications in collection system maintenance and plant maintenance from CWA. And he's also a pipeline, manhole, and sewer lateral assessment certification from NASCO, which is the National Associations for Sewer Service Companies. So his start date is projected to be, going to be February 1st. He will be at the January 25th board meeting for formal introductions, but we're really excited to have him as our team on the leadership team. I think he's going to step in real nicely to fill in those big shoes for Rob Hamers. And I do have a press release that's going to be going on here in about a day or two, announcing it publicly about our new hire. So just wanted to fill you in on that.
Mark, I hired Mark at the Orange County Sand District.
Yes, he did mention that.
I'll bet.
And he succeeded anyway.
Yeah, he's as big a pain in the ass as I am.
All right, Bob, good luck at the doctor.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Bob,
Sorry.
Mike, are you taking over?
Yeah, Art, go ahead.
Okay, because before the meeting started, we discussed, the Christmas tree problem that we're having within our city and other cities. Scott, have you thought of any other ways we could help CRNR collect those trees?
No, I haven't really thought about it. I just really put the onus on them.
Well, I was thinking during our discussions, since we don't have OCC, could we possibly use the city yard for them to dump them and then go back and get more so they don't have to keep traveling?
I'd have to ask them if they would give us permission. I have no idea.
Because, Katrina called me a number of times and I relayed the messages to you. Probably she would be in favor of it if that's possible, if that would help CRNR. Now, is Mike on the meeting today? Mike Perry?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if that's one of their problems is transporting, don't have enough time to transport them and come back, if they could use the city yard is a possibility.
It's a good suggestion.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that they would, since they want to have more interactions with the city, that would be one of them.
Yeah.
Sure, we can follow up. Well, first of all, we'd have to ask CNR if that would help them. And if it does, then we'll have to reach out to the city.
Mhm.
Okay, that's my suggestion, unless we hired a local vendor to do it for us, but and help CRNR out. But I don't.
No, I wouldn't suggest that.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking if we had a location for them to take them, that would help them a lot.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, those are my, and then is there still going to be a liaison meeting on Friday or not?
As far as we know, Nolani, have you heard anything different? I thought the city might be, I don't know. What's your,
As far as I know, we are still moving ahead. I'm expecting Mesa Water's items for the agenda today, and I received one item from the school district yesterday. So
okay,
we are scheduled.
okay,
You
very
get
good.
us that information?
I assume it'll be a Zoom meeting, Nolani?
Yes, sir.
Right.
And the agenda is put together, which should be by tomorrow. I will send that out to the board and the rest of the attendees.
What
What
time
ti-
what time does it start on Friday?
8 a.m., sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Vice President?
Go ahead, Brett.
All right, Scott, I know I'm beating the horse over and over, but the Christmas trees, a couple questions just in general. Obviously COVID impacted this, but two questions. First, I mean, it's not like it's a surprise. COVID's been here for longer than we all want. So why didn't they communicate through us and us posting, allowing us more time than say the week and a half or thereabouts that we posted and published for pickup services? And then secondly, it seems like the various different parts of the city, there's no real plan. Like, could we have not have said, okay, on Tuesday and Wednesday, it's going to be Mesa Verde, and Thursday and Friday is going to be, southeast side, so on and so forth. It seems like it's so haphazard that there was no real plan, at least that I'm aware of, and published out there to where residents can say, okay, well, I'm supposed to be picked up next Friday, something like that.
Yeah, I agree. The plan, it wasn't well planned or thought out. They generally pick up the trees on the regular collection day, but they use a different truck to do that. It's just unfortunately the COVID just put them in a tailspin where they just couldn't have enough drivers to fill the demand. And as I told Director Eccles, there's more Christmas trees this year than there has been in years past. More people were buying trees this year because of the pandemic. And so that was also compound the issue that there was just a lot more trees to pick up this year than in years past. As far as CNR telling us, of their plan or I couldn't tell you. It's a good question to ask them when we're doing their performance evaluation. Why weren't they better prepared for this?
Because I would like to make that suggestion that, again, the public can deal with things if they know about it in advance. And
Right.
COVID's been in advance. There should have been a plan. So going forward, my suggestion is segment the city and however they see fit and schedule it, not necessarily on the normal pickup days, whatever they feel their expertise is, but let's get that out there and segment the city so people know, hey, it's going to be picked up next Thursday or whatever the day may be. So maybe you could work with them for years ahead.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Well, hopefully Mike will be coming to the meetings and then, he can get up and give a report.
Definitely.
Okay, are there any other comments from any of the other directors? Anything from staff to finish this off? Hearing none, then I will adjourn our study session for January 12th, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks, if not Friday.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you all. Adios.
Bye.